go! Welcome back, Minton Motorsports. Today's exciting day. We have an Iron Rock Link, 3-link long arm kit. But I'm gonna open this up, set it on the bench. I'll show you guys what is all in this kit. There she is. Iron Rock Link, 3-link long arm kit. So, why I went with this one. The centerpiece that mounts to your transmission is removable. You don't have to weld this whole frame in replace of your stock transmission mount support bracket. I like that just in case I ever blow the transmission. I can pull this centerpiece out, drop the trans without having to take the engine out and the trans out through the top. I was back and forth on a 4-link over a 3-link, and I think the only thing that really did it for me was this is not going to be on the road a lot. I've read a lot of guys use these on the road doing 70, 80 miles an hour on the expressway, but mine's a dedicated trail rig, so I figured I'd go for the most articulation, or the kit with the most articulation, and I think this is the 3-link is where it's at. The price was obviously there. It's just a beefy kit. So yeah, here's the brackets that you mount to your unibody. Here's the center support brace for your transmission. Here's one long arm, the other long arm, and then here's your upper control arm mount. Here's the motor mounts that I bought. I think the description said this was a kind of a medium. They're not as solid as the polys, but they're not as loose and forgiving as the stock OEM replacements. So I'm hoping these obviously last a long time and also don't transfer a bunch of vibrations into the cab. I bought this just because I'm sure mine's absolutely blown out. If not, oh well, just good maintenance, I guess. That was like 20 bucks, so it's not a huge deal. Got your Johnny joint for the long arms, Johnny joint for the upper control arm, Johnny joint for the upper control arm mount on the axle, and then you got some bolts and spacers. Alright, so you want to take this thrust washer race with this spacer, put 2 bolts in it, line up the holes, preferably offset from each other. Right here, and right here. And then what you want to do is put this guy into your flex joint, like such as. Okay, that was easy. So now you're going to put the ball joint in there, but I'm going to put a light coat of grease on. Put a little bit on here. Lube that ball up. Don't be nasty. Put this in here. Now you're going to take your other race, install it over the ball and onto those bolts. So I'm just holding the bottom up, pushing down in it. And then the last one you're going to put on is this other spacer on the other side. Line up the bolts with the holes and put on your lock nuts. So now you're just going to take the other bolts, put them through the holes right in here, and then just put the nuts on the other side. Simple. Alright, so you're going to take your torque wrench, torque all these bolts to 70 inch-pounds all the way around, and then you're going to turn it to 85 inch-pounds, go all the way around in a crisscross pattern, And then you're gonna grease this until you see grease come out a little bit. Wait 5 minutes, then double check them at 85 inch-pounds again. So on the third link, it's gonna be a little bit different. There's no nuts involved in this one. These flanges, spacers, whatever you wanna call them, are threaded. So you'll have your recess hole for your bolt head, and then next to it you'll have a threaded hole, so it'll be bolted from both sides. And then the same thing, grab your inch-pound torque wrench, torque these all to 50 foot-pound or 50 inch-pounds crisscross pattern, and then to 55 inch-pounds. Run some grease into the fitting, grease it till she comes out a little bit, and then re-torque to 55 inch-pounds, and your Johnny joints are ready to go. All right, and the last step for getting your control arms ready is they give you a starting point on what size lift you have and how long the lower control arm should be center to center, and how far or how long the upper control arm can be center to center. So we have a 6.5 inch lift on mine, so we need to be 36 5/8 from center to center. But yeah, there's gonna be some, this is just a reference point, right? We're gonna have to change up lengths of them depending on the camber and all that. So this is just to get started, so I'm gonna put it at 36 5/8. All right, we got the Johnny joints all assembled, torqued down, greased. We got the bolts in the ends to tighten up the clamps when we're already installed. And then we have all of our lengths preset to iron rock spec. And now it's time to do the cross member. All right, first things first down here. Definitely hit those bolts or those studs with some WD before you put a wrench on them, a ratchet. I don't have the transmission supported yet because by undoing these, you're not really doing much. You know, the transfer case is still going to be sitting on this. All 4 of those bolts are out. Now what we need to do is support this transfer case and transmission with probably a block of wood and a jack. Alright, I got a couple blocks underneath the transfer case. I started to undo these bolts a little bit. There's not a ton of pressure on it, but there is a little. And then I should be able to pull this whole mount out and replace it with the rock link. All right, well that's out. Oh wow. Lots of dirt. Now we need to take that transmission mount off, replace it with the new one that I bought. Honestly, it doesn't look that bad, but we're in here, we might as well, right? Oh yeah, there she goes. I'm gonna twist it a little bit. Maybe get the threads cleaned up in there. Oh yeah, we're good. Alright, that's how you take the transmission mount out. Now we're putting the transmission mount back in. I did notice that there was a little bit of blue Loctite, so I put a little tiny drop on it, on these bolts after I cleaned them up. So. All right, now to take these studs out, I bought this little stud removal tool. You slip it over, tighten her up. Like that. Wow. And there you have it. A little smoky. Where are you? Well, we got her out. Okay, it's kind of hard to tell from that angle, but you have these two bolts right here that we took out. One was a bolt, one was a stud. And then you have one hole right up here that needs to be drilled out to 23/64 and then tapped. Oh, wow. So we're gonna try to run a tap in here. Okay. Look at that. We got nice threads. Did it pretty straight too. So now you just got to do the other side. I'm not going to film it because it's going to be the same thing. Use some lube. Use a good tap. It'll be easy. All right, now we're going to put in our passenger side bracket. Which bolts right in. I am going to put some anti-seize on these. Just for good measure. Just a little bit. So I'm gonna leave this loose. That way when I put the other side on and then put the middle on, I got a little bit of wiggle room to get the bolts in. So now for the driver's side, you do have to put in your upper link first because the drive shaft goes right here and you cannot get the bolt in, I don't think, from from the inside because of the drive shaft. So I'm gonna put the upper link in here real quick, kind of thread it in, not tight, and then we'll put this in. All right, so now we're gonna put this bracket and that third link up. This is gonna be kind of tough by yourself. All right, I got that in somewhat. I'm lightly putting the bolts in. That's in. I got my upper control arm in loosely. The bolt holding the Johnny joint in is loose. The bolt holding it from spinning is loose. And I just have it sitting up there on top of the upper control arm mount on the axle. Alright, so that's on there. Now what we need to do is we need to let the transfer case down. Then we need to hit those holes with the stud on the transmission mount. Get them lined up, get them in. All right, so now we got the studs. Now we got the studs through the holes, the slotted holes in there. Now we can run our nuts on all 4 of those studs. That'll mount the trans mount to the centerpiece here. We'll tighten up our carriage bolts, then tighten up the subframe bolts, or the unibody bolts. Tighten up this upper bolt that holds the upper control arm on, and this should be good to go. Started recording and then, oh my God, I was getting my ass beat on it. I took the air hammer to it a couple times and then nothing happened. So then I went and rented a ball joint press, used that, pretty much took the sleeve out, a bunch of the bushing out, the rubber material. And then I was like, well, I'll put some heat to it a little bit. Maybe I could swell up that mount to free it up a little bit. I didn't go crazy, I just gave it a little bit of heat, but that didn't work. Then I took the air hammer to it, and then I took the ball joint press again, pushed out a bunch of the rubber, and then I used the air hammer. I caved it in on one side, and then I started pushing up here with the air hammer, which then turned it, and then I sprayed some WD-40 in there, and then I worked it back and forth. Took a pry bar with a big hammer, gave her some, some heavy blows. Then the air hammer got it out. I tell you what, Iron Rock Off-Road sells a removal tool and an install tool. I think it's $50. Just buy it, dude. Just buy it, because now I got to put a Johnny joint in there without distorting the... I'll show you. So now I got to put this in here. The Johnny joint style deal. Rebuildable. But you got to put this in there without destroying or egging out this, outer race, whatever you want to call this thing. So hopefully I'm going to try to maybe rig up with something with a C-clamp. Maybe a couple pieces of steel on each side. Get it started, and then maybe use the ball joint press for the rest. There she is. Got a little bit out on the other side. Fully seated. Now we just got to put that thing together. All right, just like the other ones, the other Johnny joints, you're gonna start off with 2 bolts that go through this little guy. There's recessed spots to put the bolts. That way the bolt head sits flush. So you're gonna want to put them in those holes. Then you're gonna put them through your bearing race. I'm gonna throw a little bit of grease on that. And then you're gonna insert it. But I did one cut this way that took off a big chunk, which opened it up to this backside. I got this backside cut really nice. But before I did that, I cut this back piece off. So I think I had 3 cuts. You gotta be really, really careful because there's a fuel line back here. I watched a dude use a cutting torch for that. And I thought I was gonna watch a man die on film, on YouTube. Dude was like literally 2 inches from the fuel line with a cutting torch, just blowing through metal. I'm probably not gonna grind too much on this one. I'm gonna bend like these tabs so they're like flat on the unibody. And then I'm just gonna kind of take a flapper wheel, clean it up so it's really not sharp, and I think I'm good, and I think we're ready to start putting in our lower control arms. But yeah, cutting torch, dude. You wanna die or something? Like, that's nuts. You hit that thing with the oxygen and oh my God, kaboom! You're dead. No more long arm. We got long arms. This was pretty simple. You know, you set your length to what Iron Rock suggests, given your lift kit, which I did on the bench, measured it all up, center to center. Then you just pop them joints in the holes. The bend has to go inward towards the center of the vehicle to clear the tires. And then yeah, just pop these in, and then this is gonna be the hard part. If you can kind of tell on video how far in my axle is, I would say at least probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches. All right, so I'm not proud of this, okay, for the record. Sometimes when you're working in your shop, you're working on something, you just get some ideas in your head and you're like, that might work. I'm struggling here, trying to get this axle forward, out from underneath the Jeep. I don't want to take the springs out, don't want to take the drive shaft out, don't really want to disconnect the track bar. So I decided to back the old Fusion, strap some straps to the tires, and ratchet strap the axle forward. Also while supporting it with some jack stands, a jack. I used that block on the other side to, underneath the crossover steering, to jack it up and tilt the axle this way. But all the bolts are in. They're not torqued yet, but the lower control arm mounts, or lower control arm bolts, are in. The upper is in. We're there. I was gonna record it, but I'm like, you know, this is so sketchy and stupid that I'm not going to, and here I am anyway. But it actually worked pretty good. I got to, like, if one side needed to go a little bit farther, I just ratcheted it, pulled it this way. Or if this side needed to, I just ratcheted it, pulled this way. I had a little bit of trouble putting the lower bolts in on the lower control arms, but a little bit of a dead blow hammer, and I got the arms lined up with the holes, and here we are, dude. The springs are pretty straight. I'm definitely gonna end up checking the caster, but I'll probably do that down the road. I gotta finish the floor still, and this spot really isn't that level. I got a nice level piece in my shop right there, so I'd come in that door and kind of park it this way, jack it up, take all 4 tires off, put it on 4 jack stands. But this is about it. I'm gonna torque all the bolts down, throw the tires back on. But yeah, I think that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. That way you can see me do more sketchy, stupid stuff. But yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.